Good morning. It's Emma Davis here from veterinarycareers.com.au, and today it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Carolyn Murray. And Carolyn is joining us from the UK, and I'll just read out a short bio about Carolyn and her story, and then we'll get into some interview questions. So welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you. Good morning.
So Carolyn is fundraising for two charities to support veterinarians on the ground in like mental health and support space, and we'll give you some more information about that throughout the interview of how you can support Carolyn in her support of other vets. So as a brief bio, Carolyn graduated from Liverpool in '97, worked in the UK in several clinics, doing small and mixed animal locums, has always loved to travel. She met a Kiwi who apparently talked up New Zealand and talked down a little bit England. And so in 2003 moved to New Zealand and intended to stay for 6 months, and then actually stayed for 11 years, which is amazing. So some great travel there. And working all over North and South Islands. Joined local search and rescue team, which would have been really interesting, and helped with the Christchurch earthquake, which is fascinating, and did wildlife and conservation masters via Murdoch. That's opened a number of doors in exotics and wildlife experiences. Has done lots of volunteering overseas, and believes that it's our duty to help others. Carolyn returned to the UK mid-2014 to assist her dad, who was very ill, and spent the next 4 years looking after him and locuming around the UK. And then in the last couple of years, sadly, her father's passed away, and some vet friends have committed suicide, and also a very close friend as well. So this has been really shocking, and has led to Carolyn reaching out to those groups, and now she's turning around and supporting those groups that help others in this situation. So with all this experience, there's a focus on work-life balance now, and Carolyn works 3 to 4 days a week and does lots of dancing. And I looked at the dancing and it looks amazing, so I look forward to hearing more about that. And is recently back from a self-organised trip to Cambodia and Laos. Oh no, sorry, I made that bit up. Cambodia.
Cambodia.
Where 3 vets and 2 nurses visited 3 locations to neuter dogs and cats in the pagodas, rabies vaccinate lots of animals, and give them the flea and tick treatment. And has attended more disaster relief courses, which she'd like to pursue more into her career coming up. And so these 2 charities, Vet Life and ARC Axminster, have really helped Carolyn getting through all this really hard stuff since 2014, and she's now working to give back to the people who gave so much to her. And she's entering the Mourne Mountain Half Marathon and Tromsø Midnight Sun Half Marathon in Norway, which is amazing, in the North Pole in Norway, to raise money for these organisations. And those half marathons are coming up later this year. So I look forward to hearing more about how we can support you in that. And I think a move to New Zealand might be on the books later this year. So welcome, Carolyn. So it's a fantastic career to date. So how are you going today?
Good, thank you.
Well, that's good. And I've left it a bit late. What time is it in the UK now?
It's not too bad. It's only 9 o'clock, still
no.
Before witching hour.
Very good. Oh, thanks for making the time to speak to us today. So, Carolyn, I've got some questions to ask you. I was wondering what projects, work and non-work, that you're working on at the minute.
Okay, so work, I have just booked a flight back to New Zealand, so I'm looking for some locum work over there, but I'd like to combine that with some search and rescue and disaster relief work. I did some search and rescue work when I was there before, and I've done some a small amount of disaster rescue stuff in England since I came back. I've also started writing some travel articles about my vetty adventures. and I'm thinking about writing a book about my vet and travel adventures as well. So lots
Wow.
going on.
Lots on. And tell me more about the search and rescue. What was your involvement before, and I haven't heard of many vets being involved with that. So what does a vet do in that space?
So I was very lucky. I was in two teams. One was an urban search and rescue team that was based near Christchurch, and our team was, they all have a specialisation. Ours was flood rescue. So we had this amazing unsinkable boat that was really useful with all the floods after the earthquakes, and that we helped a lot of people and just helped people with barriers to stop the water coming in their homes. And just general support. And then I was in a land search and rescue group that was for people who are lost, like in the hills and in the mountains, and people with dementia and things like that who'd wandered off.
Amazing. So were they using your vet skills in this instance, or were they just using your medical training and your disaster training?
Yeah, so I did quite a bit of first aid stuff for them, so my vet thing was very useful. And I think just like with the empathy and teamwork thing that we do with vets was really useful working with them, because it was very much a team exercise.
And yeah, so that was really transferable skills that you brought across.
Very much so.
And how did you get interested in that in the first place?
I've always really liked hiking outdoors, and I've always been really fascinated by medical stuff, and I really enjoy helping other people. And when I got to New Zealand, I discovered that there's all these teams and they're all voluntary, and you get free training and you work with an amazing bunch of people, and everyone learns how to teach everyone else, and it's like a great environment and a great networking opportunity as well. You work with people in the region and nationally as well.
Sounds amazing. That's great. So hoping to do some more of that when you get back to New Zealand this year, maybe this year. Yeah.
Yes. We also helped out when the Christchurch earthquake occurred. We were part of the civil defence, so we went and helped people like get out of their houses, find somewhere to live, and just kind of general emotional support. So that was really interesting, and learned a lot more doing it than I think I would have doing a course in it.
Yeah, sounds really rewarding. Good on you. That sounds amazing. And tell me about the articles that you're writing. I hear that you just got one in the Vet Times, is it? Is that where we can find it?
Yes, it just got accepted. So it's basically about what I've done with my vet passport, how you don't have to get a permanent job and stay forever in your job. It is possible to do lots of exciting things. Also about my emotional journey, with my dad and the suicide of my friends, and just how things that happen in your life change your perspective and change the way you think, and that can change your career goals as well along the way. So and now it's more acceptable to talk about mental health. I think more people need to be talking about it more, especially as there's such a high suicide rate in vets still.
Yeah, oh, good on you for doing that. That's amazing. So we can find that in Vet Times, this article. We might put a link to that in this interview, or we'll post it again if is it out yet when it's out?
It's just got accepted, so it's being published hopefully this month or next month.
Well, congratulations. That's a real it's great to have something published, so that's excellent. That's a great achievement, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And so what has provided you the most motivation in your career?
I think the fact that you're continually learning, there's always things to learn. It's like a very exciting career. It's not like sitting at Tesco's at the cash point, which is not to say that's a bad job, but it's like our work is very exciting. There's always new innovations coming up. Also, I really like working with other people, and I really like helping people as well, and obviously their animals. So, and there's always new ways to do that and opportunities, especially with international travel, because obviously there's a lot of people who are less fortunate than us who need help with them and their animal care.
So tell me more about the travel. You've just been overseas as well, like, or you just got back from Cambodia and not Laos, just Cambodia.
Yes. So, sorry.
How did you set that up? How did you arrange it?
So I was very lucky. I've got an Australian vet friend who works for the RSPCA in Queensland, and she has a lot of contacts, and she wanted to go to Cambodia. She's also a Lonely Planet travel writer. She really wanted to go to Cambodia, and she'd done like a recce trip of what needed to be done. And she basically contacted me and said, "You're probably the only person I know who would just up sticks and go to a country without really knowing what you're doing. Will you come and help me?" And I said, yes. And then she found another vet, ironically, also from Liverpool University, similar year to me, who had also worked in New Zealand, and two of her Australian vet nurses. So she organised the trip, and we all turned up, and she had some contacts from before, and just started neutering lots of animals.
Yeah. And how long were you there for? And what kind of impact did you have? That sounds like pretty amazing team.
Yes, we were very lucky. The contacts we had were already established, either big animal charities or small groups. And they also spoke the local language, which is really handy because a lot of the local people don't speak English. So we went to 2 or 3 places that were not really on the beaten track. And they've got most of the stray animals around the pagodas. That's where they get dumped. So I think we were there for about 3 weeks, and I think we neutered about 300 dogs and cats.
Oh, wow. Well done. That's amazing. You're really living a really interesting career, doing lots of things and living full out, really, aren't you? Like, it's fantastic.
I think it's really important to help other people when you can.
Oh, good on you. You're really helping. That's amazing. So what have been the major transitions in your career? You've done some travel by the sounds of it. Is it, what do you think of the major stages of your career so far?
First of all, just locuming in different places around England, trying to kind of work out what kind of work I wanted to do. That made me really love mixed practice because it's so diverse and versatile. And then moving to New Zealand in 2003 was a really big step. And I think it actually made me a better vet, because there's no such thing as you can't do it, you don't have the right equipment. They're just like, get on with it. There's no such thing as failure. So it makes you really be adaptable and flexible, and I think that's really been useful for my international travels, where you're working in areas with not very much resources, and you work out ways of doing things without optimal conditions. It's amazing what you can do with not very much.
That just on that, resourcefulness is one of the things that they teach us in training, in coaching training and in coaching people, is that if you can learn to be resourceful, you can get through anything. Like, because if you're just so focused on, I need the resources to be able to do A, B, C, and D, then oftentimes when the resources aren't there, then that's the end of the conversation. But if you can tap into the resourcefulness in yourself, then it's a great space to live from, and you can get amazing things done. So it sounds like you're very resourceful.
I think New Zealand made me more resourceful. So I was very lucky.
That's good. We've stayed a long time, so you must love it. So it must be naturally to you now. Thank you for that. So what's been a major highlight and a major challenge in your career so far?
So I think the main highlight of my career was when I got to be an endurance vet on the Mongol Derby in Mongolia, which is like a really long 1,000-mile horse race, basically through the wilderness. People pay quite a lot of money to ride local horses, and it goes across the desert, the steppes, the mountains. It's pretty incredible, and that really tests your resourcefulness. And the Mongolians are the epitome of resourcefulness and innovation. And Mongolia is just an incredible country. People live like virtually in the days of Genghis Khan still, which is quite amazing in this century. Challenge-wise, my dad being really ill while I was overseas was very difficult, which led to me coming home, because things like that really make you realise that you need to, and the Christchurch earthquake happening just before I came back to New Zealand really make you realise that your whole life can change in a second, and you need to cherish the people that you love, because you don't know if they're going to be there the next day. So like, and you know, mindfulness as well, like enjoying the moment, not constantly worrying about what's happened and what's going to, which is not very constructive.
And so it's shifted you losing your dad, and what would you say is different now than before that experience? Like, that's a really tragic experience, but
I definitely really value people more and my time with them, and don't take them for granted, and enjoy spending time with the people I like. Equally, like, people who are not a positive influence in your life, I've found like it's easier to move away from, and easier to set boundaries of what you do and don't like, or are willing to put up with, in work and in personal life as well. And I think every tragedy that you get through, at the time it's always horrendous, but it makes you a stronger person afterwards. And then once you get through that, then you can help other people get through that.
Yeah, that takes a special person to do that, though. So that's great. Like, to be able to, to get through it yourself and do the work for yourself to support yourself through it, and then to turn around and help others is pretty amazing. So, yeah, have you always been helpful like this? Do you think it's a trait, or is it something that's developed?
My dad was a really lovely, generous person, and he was always wanting to help others. So I think I just inherited that from him. Not that I don't like doing things for myself, but I find it really personally rewarding to help other people and help them to help themselves, like improve themselves, you know, like pass it on, not just do things and make people's lives better, enable them.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds great. And so with boundaries, we were talking about boundaries before. How has your perception of boundaries changed through these experiences?
I think with I learnt what a work-life balance is. When I was young, I was just working, and I found that really challenging and thrived on that. And then when really bad things happened, I found it really difficult to work at that high level of stress, and had to take a step back and work less. And also, sorry, Emma, I just completely lost my train of thought.
We were talking about boundaries.
Just say the question. Yeah. What was the original question?
We were talking about boundaries and how, like, the experience the last couple of years has helped you, or has changed how you thought about boundaries.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Also, what happened with my dad was extremely stressful for a long time, and for my whole family as well. But it makes you realise, like, to be able to help other people, you have to look after yourself first, otherwise you're no good to anyone. And sometimes that's a really hard lesson to learn, because you really feel really guilty doing things for yourself, but actually, unless you're in a position to survive, then you're not really any good at caring for other people. And I think that's a big issue in the veterinary profession, that we don't look after ourselves first, and we just give, and we want to please other people, and then we get really burnt out, which I think I was on the way to before this happened. So it makes you take a step back and really evaluate. And my dad worked really hard his whole life and got really ill within a couple of years of retiring, and it made me realise, as much as I love my job, I don't want to spend my whole life doing my job. There's other things that people should do. And travelling and memories, you can't really buy those.
And so tell me more about what you're preparing for. You're going to do 2 half marathons, and they're going to be raising funds to support some charities that you found useful through this whole journey.
Yes. So both of the half marathons are in June. They're a couple of weeks apart.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is the Mourne Mountain Half Marathon, which is in Northern Ireland. And that's kind of in memory of the first friend that I lost from vet school, who really tragically passed away when he was just after his 30th birthday, in an era where we didn't really have any mental health support, and he had a lot of issues with drugs and alcohol and mental health. And vet life helped me a lot get through the recent suicide of quite a lot of my friends, and I spent a lot of time talking to them and their counsellors, and I feel like I'm getting through that now, and I'd really like to give back because they're a charity and they help so many people. And the second run is again a half marathon. It's in the North Pole, and it's in the middle of June at I'm not sure if it's the equinox or the solstice, so it's Midnight Sun half marathon in Norway, and that's in memory of a really lovely Norwegian friend I had who only a few months ago took her own life, and she was a mother with 3 kids, which made it even more shocking. And at the time that I found out about that, I was working in Devon. Luckily, within a few minutes of this charity called ARC Axminster, which stands for Axminster Recovery with Counselling, who basically are a mini version of Vet Life in Devon. They do a really incredible job with extremely skillful trauma counsellors, and I think they pretty much saved me from having a nervous breakdown when all this happened. They're really short of funds, and they don't know how long they can provide free counselling for, so I'd really like to help them back after they helped me.
And how did you find them? So they were local. Did someone in that practice connect you, or did you look for them, or how?
Yes. Ironically, the locum that I was doing at the time, there was a lot of mental health issues with the vets I was working with, and one of them mentioned to me that she'd seen these counsellors and how brilliant they were, and really luckily I just got, unlike normal counselling where you have to wait several months on the NHS, these people, you just see the doctors and get immediately transferred, and with 2 weeks I was seeing a trauma counsellor. So it was very lucky, and as she said, things happen when you need them. And they're brilliant. And that was face to face rather than on the phone, which was really useful.
Powerful as well. So how do we support you in that? So are you raising funds for these? Is there a link or something we can pop up to?
Yes, I've got 2 separate Just Giving accounts links for both of those runs. One is under the Wilderness Vet, the Irish one, and the other one is under the Wilderness Vet 2. So if you look them up under Just Giving, you'll find them plus a little bio of what's going on.
Well, thank you so much for doing that, for putting yourself out there and doing that. It's really, it's a powerful helping thing to be able to publicise these stories and then have some good come out of such tragedy is amazing. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think also by helping other people and fundraising for these charities, that again helps more people and helps them to help more people. So it's all about getting the word out there that it is okay to have counselling, and a lot of us need it, even though we don't think we want it.
And was counselling, what was it like? Was it a bad thing, or how did you actually find it?
It was quite tough, and it makes you ask a lot of questions of yourself, but it really helps you analyse things, and it's definitely made me a stronger person, and it basically gives you tools to deal with things, because things like this are probably going to happen again, but you know better how to deal with them, and also how to help other people deal with them. So it's extremely useful, and I would encourage anyone who is having problems to get counselling and or coaching, because it really helps you progress with your life and your career and your personal development. And just being able to have relationships with people in the middle of all that can be very difficult, so it helps with that too.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm so glad that your pain and tragedy, the tragedy around the last couple of years, you're just powerfully putting that into such good causes, and it's just directly helping other people. So it's, yeah, really great. Thank you. Thank you on behalf of all the vets that you're helping, because that's amazing.
I think even though disasters are terrible, sometimes you can make good things happen afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a special person to do that. So yeah, that's awesome that you are. So that's I think I've seen other people fall and break from great tragedy. So yeah, give yourself a good pat on the back for being strong and walking through and learning the lessons and helping other people, because yeah, some people don't recover. So yeah.
No. But as they say in the song, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Yes. And I think most of the time that does work, and that's sometimes what I repeat to myself.
Yeah, good on you. So I'll just ask one final question. So how, so the question I wrote to you about was, how would you change the veterinary industry? What would be a positive change we could make in the veterinary industry? What do you think?
I think, well, at vet school, I think if we had psychology and business training, which I think Nottingham is trying to address now, that would be really helpful, because most of the issues that people have at work or even in their lives are because of communication issues. And I think that would definitely have really helped me, and I think that is starting to happen. Also, I think if employers attended courses on definitely psychology or like teamwork or leadership / management, because we're taught to be vets, we're not really taught to be business people or managers. And often we think we're really good at these things, but actually we're not. So I think that would be really helpful. And just positive reinforcement, and just the words thank you can make a really big difference in productivity and morale, which I think not everyone really realizes still. Yeah, those are the main things. Let me just have a quick look at my thing, Emma.
You're okay, there's no right or wrong. Have you got any other final comments as well when you're having a quick look? Is there anything else? So we'll pop up the links to your article that's coming out in the Vet Times soon, and that's going to be great and be a lovely reflective piece on your journey so far. And then we can pop up the links to support you for the upcoming half marathon. So that'll be amazing. And please check in with us after that too, and after June, and we're going to hear about the experience. And yeah, it sounds amazing after the North Pole. That's amazing. So, so did you have any final comments that you'd like to make?
Just one comment for people who are going into vet school, as like a useful tip. When I did my A-levels, I did biology, chemistry and French because I can't do physics. And French has been way more useful than physics ever was. I've worked in lots of countries where they only speak French and Arabic or another language. So I'd highly recommend, if you can diversify before you start, that's even better.
Yeah, great tip. I love it. Okay, we might post this where the to-be vets are going to be as well. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. It's really been wonderful talking to you and hearing about your journey and your amazing veterinary career. Please come and say hi when you're down south again, when you're in New Zealand. I'd love to pop over and say hi, or come out to Australia. You're very welcome. And yeah, if anyone's got any disaster relief opportunities for Carolyn in the New Zealand space, and I'd love to keep up to date with your involvement in that as well, and how we can tie that into your veterinary career as well. And like, the vet offers such a great perspective on disaster management. So yeah, well, thank you so much for your time, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye. Bye.
Perspective on disaster management. So yeah, well, thank you so much for your time, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye. Bye.